You're watching Leafs Morning Take with host Nick Alberga and former NHLer Jay Rosehill. The show starts now.
All right, what's good, everybody? It's time for the Wednesday edition of Leafs Morning Take presented by Betano. It's Nick Alberga and Jay Rosehill. What's going on, Rosie?
What's happening? Game night, another big interdivision rivalry game. I like this, man.
17 days away from the Stanley Cup playoffs. Every day I wake up and I'm like, we're one day closer. I'm just at that feel. You know, I watch a lot of hockey. Watched a considerable amount on Tuesday. I'm like, let's just get to the dance now. We know the Leafs are going to be there. We know a variety of teams are going to be there. I guess there's a bit of intrigue in the Eastern Conference. We're going to get to the standings momentarily, but I just want to get to the playoffs at this point.
I know, but there's bodies to heal. There's power plays to get rocking.
True.
It's good. The last little while's been good in Leafs Nation here, and we got to keep that up. And there's another test here today, but I mean, the measuring sticks we talk about that, oftentimes this team in the last few years has come up short with is starting to hit their stride. And there seems to be a little bit of an intrigue going on about, maybe this team is better than it has been in the past. Maybe they are better than their opponents this time, and not false hype or anything like that. It's like they're underdogs on paper, but I just think there's a sense of, no, I think they're actually more legit than people are giving them credit for, which hasn't been their case. They've always been overinflated and pumped up too high and come up short. So I'm not saying that's definitely the case, but I think there's reason to believe right now that things are a little bit different this year and they're finding their stride. And I love how people aren't building them up so high to make it, impossible to hold up to those standards. So they got a chance to prove that again tonight.
I had a chance to check out the Leafs Nation After Dark on Monday night with you and Zach Phillips, and I thought I was watching a porno. I have not seen somebody that horned up and that hard by a team's a 6-4 victory in a long period of time. So you're feeling good on this Wednesday, eh?
Dude, that was just,
You were jacked. I won't lie. We had the conversation off the air. I mean, our chain was off the hook on Monday.
I was jacked. It was an easy one to drop. You got bodies out. I mean, it's the big bad Panthers. They beat them out of the playoffs last year. They're built for that kind of hockey. They got a bunch of guys that can really just put the Leafs on their heels and just front to back. Sammy, the defense, secondary scoring, our stars, everything was just looking good from start. I want to say start to finish, but from the first two periods was complete dominations. I mean, aside from a couple of odd man rushes that we really got to, rein in, the Panthers had nothing for 40 minutes. And I do not care about the third period. It is human nature to let off the gas when you're up 5-1. Every team in the world does it. It's just the way it happens. I mean, just to play that 40 minutes and then for the Leafs fans to expect them to finish them off 7-1, get real. It's the Florida Panthers. I was totally pumped with the way that game finished up, and it wasn't Florida had all their guys injured, so there's no reason to nitpick, man. Our guys were all low. We had legit bodies in the stands and still took it to them. I'm not trying to build them up or anything, but I had a lot of positive things to say after that game.
Man, the Panthers have gone full Taco Bell diarrhea here. They're 4-8-1 since acquiring Vladimir Tarasenko. The look at the standings brought to you by Charm Diamond Centers. Get custom ring building delivered in less than 4 weeks with the Charm Masterpiece program and an unbeatable pricing policy. For more information, go to charmdiamondcenters.com. Rosie, suddenly the Leafs sort of control their own, fate when it comes to home ice advantage potentially. They're 4 points back of Florida with 2 games in hand, so they got that on them, and it's within reach now. I don't know what's going on with the Panthers, but they're losing guys too. They lost Verhaeghe against Toronto. They lost Ekblad. There's a reason for optimism on that side too when you look at that potential first round matchup.
Yeah, there is. And a little side note, Tarasenko keeps being the big addition to these teams trying to make a charge, and they kind of fall flat every time. You know what I mean? So I don't know. Maybe there's a pattern there. Nothing against him, but it just doesn't seem to be working out where he goes to try to put a team over the top for the playoffs so far anyway. But no, it's I don't know, man. It's not as big of a deal as the home ice as I think it is with other teams. We've been kind of average at home. We're kind of a jittery team. We've got this big history. The city is a buzz. It's so palpable for the playoffs, and almost to a point where I don't know if the guys wearing that jersey get a little bit nervous and whatnot, but normally it would be like, we want to be in front of our fans. We want to be at home. We want to sleep in our own beds. We want to eat our pregame meal at our normal place. We want to do our routine, right? But, half the games are on the road. They have a routine on the road as well. You just think about going into a game 7, like, where would you rather have it? And I'm not saying we don't want to have it at home or anything like that. The Panthers home and away record is very, split as well. I looked at that saying, well, if they're incredible at home, then I'd rather steal home ice from them. But they're pretty even. So it's not a huge deal. But I mean, you want to try to win the games. You're trying to heal everybody up. You're trying to play your best hockey going into the playoffs. So if we did take home ice, it would mean we're playing well, and we get home ice on that, valuable game in the first 2 at home. It's you want it, right? It's just not the biggest deal for this team. I don't think.
It isn't. One regulation victory in the last 10 for the Florida Panthers. And I think the fortunate thing from Toronto's perspective, I'd rather be way better on the road, which this team has shown the ability to win on the road throughout the season, which I think is a positive. At some point in time, you're going to have to win in a hostile environment, whether it's Florida, it's Boston, whoever you play. I think the important part of the game we're going to preview today is that the Leafs can pretty much solidify that Tampa's not going to catch them. Maybe even a couple days ago, we were talking about the Lightning being in the conversation. They're 8-1-1 in the last 10 games, but the Leafs now 6 points up on the Lightning, playing each other twice starting tonight in the last 7-8 games of this season. So tonight could go a long way. I do believe the Maple Leafs could clinch a playoff spot tonight.
Yeah, I think they can if they win this one. And I don't know, it jumps around so much. I mean, it's my kind of problem with this wild card format was it's pretty solidified and there's not a lot of action this time of year. But against that, there kind of has been. It looks like we were falling into a wild card spot, and then home ice is getting thrown around, and that wild card's totally up for grabs. And Washington's kind of doing what it's doing, and Florida's fallen off the map a little bit. It's kind of all over the place. So there is some action there and some excitement. My mind's not even on Tampa or the wild card or anything. I think they're playing too well, and I think they're a good team. They're going to move forward if anything. But I know, like I said, things change quite quickly right now. But I think it's pretty clear we're probably playing Florida unless they really figure something out and leapfrog Boston or something like that. But we'll see. It's kind of nice to have these games, these measuring stick games that teams that you've had in the past in the playoffs, teams that you'll have to face in order to get to where you want to go, and teams that have been dominant in the playoff in the past, and we get to face them right now and kind of keep our stuff sharp. And I don't think that's a bad thing this time of year. I'm all about keeping sharp. I know we're going to talk to O-Dog today about load management, what to do with Austin. Do you try to get him to 70, or do you want to rest him or back off, or what's the lineup look like? And I'm a big believer in I get resting guys, and you don't want to hurt anybody at this time of the year, but I want this team to have their real lineup. I want them going on all cylinders, trying to perfect their system and get real good mojo going into the playoffs and have a playoff feel. So when the puck drops, they know exactly what they're doing. They don't have to go tiptoe and see what's going on. I hate that shit in the playoffs. It's too important.
I would love an inspirational video out of Florida where they're yelling, "We want Toronto," all 7 Florida Panthers fans. It's unlikely to come, but it just has that feel that they're okay with playing the Toronto Maple Leafs. And the Maple Leafs got to seize the moment. They took care of business the other night, and we'll see how the standings play out over the next couple of weeks. And, even watching Tuesday night's action, you talked about the Eastern Conference playoff race. Suddenly there's a race because nobody wants the final 2 playoff spots in the Eastern Conference. It's an absolute joke. Buffalo smashes Washington last night. Pittsburgh comes from behind to beat New Jersey. I think it would be amazing narrative if it somehow took place where the Leafs and the Pittsburgh Penguins at some point in time got together in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Highly unlikely. The Pens are going to miss, but you can never count out a guy like Sidney Crosby. I think he's been unbelievable throughout the season and lately for the Pittsburgh Penguins. They're 3 points out of a playoff spot. But again, the Islanders don't seem to want it. Detroit's been, struggling. Washington, Philadelphia, their coach is calling everybody out left and right. Like, just somebody grab hold of that playoff spot. But I was just thinking last night, how cool would that be if Pittsburgh got in, upset somebody, and then the Leafs win and somehow they play each other? I think that would be a cool narrative. Unlikely, though.
I think stranger things have happened, but yeah,
True.
we'll see how it goes. I don't. It's kind of that is kind of the gripe with this format is you're kind of not really going to get that too often, right? You're going to face those, if you're at a point in time in your development and you're building of a team and you're not in a rebuild or anything like that. You're going to have your top teams in the division, and they're just going to face each other for, a substantial amount of years while they're in the same boat. And I think that was the plan going into this format of get these rivalries going, get this bad blood going. And that's fine. You could say there is some of that. But yeah, it takes away from, holy, imagine like just thinking about the Leafs playing Pittsburgh in the playoffs doesn't even seem right. Like it's not even anything that's crossed anyone's mind really. But stranger things have happened, and like you say, that wild card's kind of up for grabs right now. No one seems to be able to figure their shit out enough to go and grab it and take control of it. So that'll be kind of interesting coming down the stretch here too. But I do think that those two top teams in our division, they're not scared of the Maple Leafs, nor do they have reason to be. I mean, the Leafs have done what they've done in the playoffs over the last 20 years. It speaks for itself. They've kind of had their number, but that's just fine with me if those teams all think that. I want them to be overconfident. I don't mind these guys being the underdog. They got things to prove, and I think that this year they have reason to be more confident than they have in the past.
Folks, you find yourself looking at Jay Rosehill today and say, wow, I wish I can wear that merchandise and what he's wearing today in his wardrobe. Well, here's your perfect time to do so. Go wild at Nation Gear's end of regular season Merch Madness sale. Nation Gear is offering our favorite fans 20% off all regular season merch and free shipping on orders over $200. Stock up on your closet. Grab that merch you've been eyeing all season long. Don't wait. This sale only lasts from April 1st to the 7th, 2024. Shop the sale at nationgear.ca to look like Jay Rosehill today.
You should be so lucky.
Yeah, look at that. Look at that merch. You're a company guy.
Feeling cute this morning, you guys.
You know what's cute? Today's guest. Can't wait to get him on. Jeff O'Neill, the O-Dog, is going to stop by in, I guess, 20 from now.
I know, that'll be good. I always like talking to O-Dog. Shoots it straight. Always has takes. Follows the Leafs quite closely. And we'll pick his brain. We got lots of questions for him today. I mean, there's lots of what ifs, from power play to different personnel changes. Who do you have on the back end? Goaltending. Who's in, who's out? What do you do with load management? Lots of stuff going on that we'll pick his brain about. So, yeah, looking forward to getting them on.
Just quickly, this question via Jose. What are your guys' thoughts on Newfoundland, the Growlers, closing it down, shutting it down? Did you have any attachment to them back in the day? Probably not, eh?
No, we used to go to St. John's and play
Right.
as the Ice Caps, and I didn't do the coast thing in Newfoundland or anything. But it's always shitty when it's just tough, like that economy and that market and stuff. It's hard to support a professional team, yet they want it so bad. The people that are there are such great fans, and it's got such a a cool culture out there. And it's shitty to hear that instead of something positive happens, something like that happens. Those players are just stuck, and they got kind of screwed over. They got nowhere to really play now, and they're free agents, or they're can't go anywhere else. It's kind of a tough spot. So I feel for them at this point in time. I don't know all the details on what happened. Obviously, they just team folded, couldn't make a go of it, which is always tough to hear in hockey. You want to see it going upwards, not the other way.
Yeah, of course, Toronto's ECHL affiliate, and there's been attachment, as you mentioned, to that neck of the woods in Canada. So we send our very best out there at the Leafs Nation 401. If you're watching right now, hit that subscribe button. Hit that like button, Leafs Morning Take, wherever you find your podcasts. Leave us a 5-star review and a quick comment on how you feel about the podcast. Brought to you by DoorDash. It's time for the appetizer. For a limited time, our listeners can get 25% off, up to $10 in value, and 0 delivery fees on their first order of $15 or more when you download the DoorDash app. Enter code NATION25. That's code NATION25, all in uppercase. 25% off your first order with DoorDash. Offer valid in Canada, subject to change. Terms apply. So some news and notes from the morning skate first and foremost. Joel Edmondson is out there, which is great to see. Don't think he's going to play, but he's missed the last couple games, coined week to week earlier this week. And Morgan Riley on track to return tonight, missed 4 games with an upper body injury, 3-1-0 without him. We'll talk about the power play momentarily, but it looks like Mark Giordano is going to exit the lineup.
Yes, interesting. I don't know that back end, man. There's decisions to be made, that's for sure. I think it's kind of unanimous on. Like, I was crunching the numbers, and I mean, I have Gio as playing in the playoffs, man. Yeah, like he's just, and I don't know. I don't have Brody playing. Like, I know he won the belt the other night, but like, I just don't have him in the lineup, man. I can just see these liabilities and holes in that big goal that just kills you on his back. But we've been missing Edmondson, and Lyubushkin's going to be in, right? He's a guy that I kind of like forgot about recently. Like we got him to play. It's stacked up on the back end. And I hope they find a formula that makes sense, that is, merit based, that has got the best two combo of two men, and two men, six guys. These guys play the best. These guys need to play these minutes down the line. These guys play with each other. We got it set. It's in stone, done deal. And it's the best we got. I don't want it to be up in the air. I don't want it to change after game one. I would like them to have that solidified and understand what they're doing. But yeah, Gio comes out. I really like the idea of Edmondson getting back healthy. When they were saying week to week, I'm like, what the hell is going on with this guy? Like, is he even going to play before game one? Like, I really like him. Again, that game that he played in against the Oilers was just like, I was salivating. I'm like, we've been freaking waiting. We've been wanting this for so long. You got it a bit with Luke Shen last year, but he just seemed really, really to bring something to the table that has been a weakness of this team, and other teams have picked apart in the playoffs. And I really feel like they've plugged some holes this year with guys like him.
I'm very intrigued to see what that game one roster looks like. Having said that, I think the Stanley Cup playoffs, a big part of it, big portion of it, is about adjustments and line changes. So while we could see one guy for game one, it could be a lot different. We see a lot when it comes to goaltending, where one guy starts the playoffs, somebody else finishes it, or somebody gets hurt. So I won't read too much into that game one roster, but yeah, like that's my intrigue when you look at Giordano, what he brings to the team. He's 40. This is his last hurrah. You would think conceivably will retire this summer. I'm putting, plain and simple, I'm putting the guys who are playing the best to finish the season out there for the first game, and then you adjust accordingly. Isn't that the way you would go if you're Sheldon Keefe?
It sure would. It makes complete sense. But let's be honest, TJ
True.
Brody has not been playing the best. He's been one of the biggest standouts as a liability, and he was very reluctant to pull him out, where a guy who has stood up and done great things for this team, and Simone Benoit, has been scratched multiple times. So that just tells me that he's not doing that. And I've ranted about it before. It pisses me off. This is the NHL. This isn't kumbaya. We don't, I like him, and he's played a lot of games, let's let him play. Like, fuck that. You're trying to win a Stanley Cup, put the best body in there that you can. Brody's not going anywhere. Like you said, things change. Things, you have a tough loss or something happens, Brody's back in there. But right now, I don't have him slotted in the top six of guys that have performed for this team in the recent past. So I don't know, man. We'll see what Keefe does. Sometimes I scratch my head at his decisions with the lineup card.
Yeah, that's probably an understatement. You talk about that lineup card. Sounds like Mitch Marner is going to come back on Saturday night against the Montreal Canadiens in La Belle Province. They're 7-3-1 in 11 outings without Marner. He was spotted at the Raptor game last night, which is great to see. So feeling better, and that's a huge positive. You get Mitch Marner back in that Maple Leafs lineup. We had this conversation yesterday. I do not care where you place the guy. I would stick with the top line with Domi, Bertuzzi, and Matthews right now, but again, they'll probably try some different combinations, but the biggest part about this is getting Mitch Marner back up to speed and playing his game for game one of the playoffs.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he could be an instant factor in turning the power play around. I mean, he is a power play man. He's a playmaking monster. You get him on there, he could just find the seams and sew everything back up together just perfectly. Same with Morgan Riley getting him back. But no, they've done well without Mitch. But I mean, it's Mitch Marner. You put him back in the lineup, you've gotten better. So looking forward to him. I imagine he is 100% healed, and they made damn sure of it. And showing up in public like that with Mama Bear all dressed up looking fancy is nice to see. And I think he's ready to rock. So I'm excited to get him back in there, particularly on the power play, to see what he can do with that.
You got to create a power rankings of Hockey Wives because that's the one thing I adore about you. Any player mentioned in the league, past or present, you will make a comment about the wife or significant other. Again, you're a lover.
I'm a feminist at heart, and I appreciate women. I love women. They're amazing, and usually a good man have got a good woman right beside them. Tag team in life, baby.
Very important. My Two Cats t-shirt's getting a lot of play in the chat. I appreciate all the respect. Zach Phillips, the Leafs Nation After Dark is coming up tonight, so make sure you check that out after this game between the Leafs and the Lightning. Will Nick be making an appearance at Two Cats this weekend? Got to find out on Monday's edition of Leafs Morning Take. You just never know what's going to transpire after producer Vic and I took down the roof at Two Cats last weekend. But certainly looking forward to this one against the Tampa Bay Lightning. It's got that general feel. I know you're out of market, but like The weather's starting to turn. It's been kind of crummy the last couple days. I mean, there's cautious optimism in this market, especially the way the Blue Jays are playing right now. Like, all eyes are focused on the Toronto Maple Leafs, and here's hoping for a long playoff run, man.
Big time. I don't know, man. Like, do you remember last year? I mean, the team's quite good, quote unquote, and
Yeah.
they had their big games and it was such a roller coaster. They had their piece of shit games, and they're still get lots of points in the regular season, and you're looking at it going, well, maybe they'll just turn into like the best team ever. And it was just kind of like hesitation almost, or false hope, it felt like, but maybe because they did have the ability to do good things with their personnel. I don't feel that this year. I just feel like they're not a world beating team by any stretch. Just like anyone else, they have their shortcomings, but I just feel like they're more well rounded. And you talk about the Bobby McMahons and the way Bertuzzi and Domi have, they just found chemistry, like something they've been looking for years that they just don't really get. It's like, yeah, Austin might get a hat trick one game and win you the game, but that's not really what that's fantastic, but it's not really what we've been like without and looking for. And it feels like we've got some of that on the front end, especially with the depth and the scoring. Like, if the problem is the Stars don't have it one game, they can, Bertuzzi could easily have two in the playoffs, and Domi could set up like a nice, it could happen elsewhere this year where it couldn't really, like, we're relying on Kerfoot or something. Like, it's not fucking happening. This year seems different. The back end, we've got some jam. No one's going to come in. Like, Tampa's MO in the first round was, we're just going to come in and just kick the shit out of them. They're so weak. They're so scared. They have no bite, no snarl. We're just going to push them out of the building. And they tried that, and normally it would have worked. It didn't. They got by the first round, but it's just not happening this year. I have a different vibe, different feel. It's more exciting this year, and I'm doing my best not to like build them up, because that's happened before and it's not good. But I just have reason to think that this is a more playoff ready team.
Yeah, that's fair. And I know we have ODog coming up in about 10 minutes from now. And I wanted to bring up the fact that Brian Hayes brought up a really good point on yesterday's edition of Overdrive, which is a fantastic listen and watch, about how the Leafs, a lot of their offense on Monday against Florida came from the tough spots on the ice where you need to score in the Stanley Cup playoffs, which I thought was a really astute point. Like, it wasn't the flash and dash Maple Leafs, and you need those type of goals come the postseason. The only thing sweeter than the taste of victory is starting your day off with a new Cinnabon pull-apart from Wendy's. That said, there's no reason you can't have both now that Wendy's and Daily Face-Off Fantasy are giving you a chance to win weekly prizes all season long. And hey, even if you make a few wrong picks, at least heading to Wendy's right now for a $5 Cinnabon pull-apart and a small coffee would be a great choice. Sign up for Daily Face-Off today, sponsored by Wendy's and the Wendy's app. The third of 4 meetings between the Leafs and Lightning this season. Rosie, Toronto's won both previous matchups, both in OT. In general, the Leafs have won 3 in a row, but the Lightning have been red hot coming into this one, 8-1-1 in the last 10. It's always a fun time when these two teams get together, but I think from the Maple Leafs perspective, health and getting guys going and Morgan Riley coming back, I think is going to be huge. And you talked about the power play. Surprise, surprise, they're 0 for the last 16, 0 for the last 10 without Morgan Riley in the lineup.
That's crazy, man. Like, they've been playing quite well for a huge piece of weaponry on an offensively gifted team to be that dog shit. I mean, just another reason to think, well, if that gets going too, like, how far ahead are we? So I like that, man. Like you were talking about with like what Hayes said with Bertuzzi and Domi and those guys, like say last year, these stars haven't really been able to do their thing in the playoffs, right? And if you don't do it on game one, then it's holy shit, we lost, and I got to do it in game two, and all this pressure. And then, a guy like Mitch Marner has a tendency to like try to overdo it and like overcomplicate the game and not be able to keep it simple because he's trying so hard. Like, I get paid all this money. I'm the guy. I'm supposed to score the 2 goals tonight. And, it gets like that. But if we have some secondary scoring and some support, and I mean, you look at that game the other night against Florida, I mean, I didn't even notice, John Tavares, really, William Nylander, didn't even notice those guys. And there was a plethora of stuff going on. That can happen in the playoffs. And then, there's no huge pressure. Let's go, William. And then game 2, he comes in and then he steals the show. And you got so many just different arsenal of weaponry you can go towards. And, you get the power play going too. It's like, there's still room to get even better. It's not like they're holding on by the string of their teeth right now, playing some pretty good hockey in the last little while. There's even like usually there's a reason to knock them and say, yeah, they won that couple of games, or yeah,
Yeah.
they did this, but the other team was, or they were playing this shitty. Like, no, like stack up whatever you want. We are playing well, and there's reason to believe or assume that we're going to get even better as bodies come back, power play gets clicking, like all those other factors. So it's kind of exciting time, and I'm in the same boat as you. Like, let's get this goddamn postseason rocking.
Joseph Woll, the first goalie off the ice, so presumably he'll start this game, which I thought would be the case. I think first and foremost, you look at his numbers career-wise against Tampa, pretty damn good. 4 appearances, 3-0-0, a 1.70, 949. But I think it's the right decision to give Samsonov some time off and Woll a look. I mean, I don't think this decision has been made on the game one starter just yet, and I think there's opportunity and time for Woll to grab that crease.
There's time. If the playoffs started tomorrow,
Sure.
Samsonov would be playing in my mind. He's earned that. Woll hasn't done quite enough to get in there and steal you are the number one right now, but there is time, and I would like him to get opportunity to do so. The better Woll plays and the harder it is to make a decision on the goaltender, the better. That's a good problem to have. And yeah, an opportunity for him to come steal the show. And I think he's due for one of those games where he just absolutely shuts it and steals the show and makes everyone think, holy shit, who is better right now, Sammy or Woll? And again, wicked problem to have. So opportunity for him, no doubt. And yeah, a well-deserved night off for Samsonov.
And we're probably not going to find out who Tampa's going to start. Never put anything past John Cooper. I know they've called up Matt Tompkins in the last couple of days. Is it going to be the big cat Vasilevsky? I think at this point, Tampa knows where they're at in the standings. They got a good buffer zone on the second wildcard spot. Doesn't look like they're going to catch Toronto. So your guess is as good as mine, but they always give the Leafs a really, really good matchup. Just reading some of the news and notes as the scrums get underway following the morning skate for the Maple Leafs. Riley's going to return, confirmed. Gio expected to sit, and Joel Edmondson not available till Saturday. So you could see Edmondson and Marner come back on Saturday against the Montreal Canadiens. Joseph Woll is going to start, and Sheldon Keefe was also asked about Austin Matthews, something we talked about quite a bit this week, saying, I'm not concerned about 70 goals at all. I'm concerned about having him in our team ready to go for the playoffs, which I think is the right answer, Rosie.
It's the only answer. I mean, the guy, whether he hits 70 or not, it's not really going to change anything, right? People will talk about the number. That's great. And how many people have done it. That's also great. It's a personal accolade. And I don't even think Austin is that, concerned about it. I think he'd way rather, go to the Eastern Conference final than hit 70 goals. It's not even a question. So as far as, I don't know, I really wanted to give Austin a night off or like back his minutes way off. But I really want him to get 70. So I'm just going to keep pushing and chugging him along out there. Like, not a chance, dude. Put yourself in either one of their shoes, especially Sheldon Keefe's. He could give two shits about some guy's personal accolades. He knows how good he is. He knows he's having a great season. He's concerned about what can I do to make, the biggest percentage chance of him feeling 110% on opening night and being healthy but ready and in the zone and not rusty and all that shit. That's what he's going to do, and it has nothing to do with the number of goals he ends up with on this season.
Rosie, where do you put Marner when he comes back on Saturday?
Second line, probably. I know
so
some
with
guys
Nylander and Tavares.
I think so. Like, honestly, when I do that, then all of a sudden the third and fourth, they don't look lean, but like,
I know.
I don't know who you could spread out. I mean, that's a pretty deadly line too. Yeah, that's kind of the no-brainer. I just think that there's enough. Like, I don't feel like he should be a guy, and I don't know what his own mindset is, but I don't think he should be a guy where he's like, I need to play on the first line. I need to play. Like, wherever you go, Mitch, you make other people better. I think he's really standing out now as like a playmaker and an assist man, and getting guys hot who need to be elevated, and he can make guys on his line considerably better than they would be without him. So wherever he fits in, I don't really care. Whatever makes sense to Sheldon Keefe, but do not break up that first line. Just do not do that, Keefe. Do not do that. I'll fucking lose it. Like, there's got to be a reason why he jumbles up these goddamn lines as much as he does, and it has to be because he's trying to find some chemistry. And here it is, the most chem we've seen in a long time, and it's not Nylander, Matthews, and Marner on the same line where it's all your eggs are in one basket. it's you got the other guys going, the guys that you came in for support like that, Bertuzzi and Domi with Matthews, fucking right. It's a godsend to be able to pull Marner off and be able to use his talents elsewhere to make your team even deeper and frustrate the other team as far as line matching and whatnot. What do we do now? We got two mutant lines. Like if he cannot break up those I'm not even going to get worked up about it because there's just no chance that's going to happen.
And there's pushback too, right? When you come to that Matthews line and you look at time and space and you look at the dirty areas in the Stanley Cup playoffs, we talked about that game against Florida. Like you need to score those type of goals. And I love the chem that trio has built up. I know the sample size is roughly 2.5 weeks, but like the way Domi's playing, the way Bertuzzi's playing right now, I don't know why you'd want to fuck with that, you know?
You wouldn't. You can't. You shouldn't. It would be insane to do it. It's everything you've asked with, throughout the whole season, what you're trying to find. Here it is. Austin Matthews. He plays with Domi, who has vision and can find Matthews and kind of clicks with him, understands where that guy goes, where that guy needs to play with someone who knows where he is so he can get the puck and score a million goals. And then you need a guy who's not just floating on the outside, dicking around, waiting for his cookie. Get to the net, get that rebound, get that tap in, get the ugly stuff going. If your first line's doing that and Austin Matthews is on it, do not touch it, man. There's no way he's going to touch it. I don't even know why. I'm working myself up in anticipation that he does something crazy, but there's just no way.
It's just like we've gotten to a point where we've seen every combination possible, and you can't put any grain of salt into any of the lines Sheldon Keefe has, and you wonder what's next, like what's going to happen next. But I'm right there with you. I wouldn't mess around with a good thing right now. And you've lived the game, you've played the game, right? You feel the same way.
But it's not like when Marner comes back, he's going to be like, what the fuck? I'm on the second line here. Like with those guys, that's pretty interchangeable. Those lines can play very similar minutes. It's not even like it's a first line, second line. It's like, here's our top six, like enjoy. And if you have it clicking like the top three guys are, and again, maybe not even top three, but just Matthews and his boys on his wing are like, you're not going to mess with that. And then Marner's going to go do his thing. And whoever ends up having the most success is kind of irrelevant, but that's just for a team. And to have depth, like to have Marner not on that line is like, it's a gift, man. Spread that shit out and dominate. Like I think it's awesome. If he were to screw up that first line and just to get Marner, it would be insane to me. So I'm not even going to go there because I don't think it could possibly happen.
There hasn't been any conversation about Calle Jarnkrok too, eh? Like
I know he's kind of just floating in the wind. Like it's kind of odd, really.
It is. Producer Vic, do we have in the right frame here? Can you let me know off the air?
He's looking upside down to me.
There we go. Hey, there we go. Okay, we're going to welcome him in now. This interview brought to you by Douglas, named Canada's best mattress on Canadian living. Douglas is loved by more than 200,000 Canadians, and they're backed by over 10,000 five-star reviews. Every mattress order comes with a free comfort sleep bundle, 2 memory foam pillows with pillow protectors, 1 luxurious cotton sheet set, and 1 mattress protector. Order today at douglas.ca/LMT. That's douglas.ca/LMT as you bring in the one and only O-Dog. It is Jeff O'Neill. What's going on, buddy? Oh, no, we can't hear you. We can't hear you.
Okay.
Oh, there we go. We got you. How's it going?
We're good.
How are you?
We're good.
Good to be with you.
Your camera was laying on the side there, O-Dog. You got her figured out, though.
Yeah, I honestly, the technical stuff that I have to deal with, Rosie, since doing this job, I never thought in a million years, because it used to be a guy would have to come over to my house and be like, look, dum-dum, hit that button right there, and all you do is click that button. And once you kind of figure it all out, it's pretty easy. But at the beginning, I'm like, I don't know how to do this. That was my excuse for everything. I don't know how to do this. But once you figure it out, it's pretty, like some of the stuff, it gets a little bit complicated. Like if I have to do Jay on-right show after Overdrive, it's like I got to plug different things in. I missed a bunch of shows early on just because my earpods, I didn't have them connected to the Wi-Fi. I was missing Leaf games during COVID. That's hockey with Gino Retta, all because I didn't have and I was having people come over to look at different things, but I just didn't plug in my earphones. I didn't connect them to the Wi-Fi, and that was the problem. Drove me nuts.
We're learning every day. You got her figured now, man. It's good to have you on.
Yeah, good to be here.
Firstly, I want to say our chat is just on fire right now. You guys have just started something crazy. Everybody's calling Hayes a fraud, but you know who's not a fraud? I want to commend you, man. You look fantastic. What's the secret been?
You know what? I mean, I had put on a bunch of weight. I don't need to get into the long drawn out story of why it happened, how it happened. But at the end of October, my brother handles my business stuff, and he sent me an email. He forwarded me an email. One of the guys that listens to Overdrive owns a gym at the 401 in Kipling. And he just sent a casual note because we always talk about fitness and blah, blah, blah. And he said, look, man, if you ever want to get serious, just come on in and I'll have a look at you and I'll help you. And I just got to a point where I was like, F this, I gotta change things up. So I called him, and the guy basically saved my life, prolonged my life anyway, because just a very simple routine. And he was very straightforward. He's a really smart guy. And he's a great guy. And he just told me, this is how it's going to be. And if you want to start missing stuff and showing up late and calling me and canceling, just don't come back. So he was no nonsense, which I had an appreciation for. And I see him 3 times a week. And gradually it's come along because obviously, I mean, Nick, I don't know what you do as far as your workout routine, but me and Rosie, we know how to train. Like, we know how to work out in the general fundamentals. So now it's getting to a point where he just needs to check on me once in a while. And I do it myself, and I'm actually quite enjoying it. So it's been a fun transition because, I don't know, being that size was no fun. I'll tell you that.
You're a lean, mean, sexy machine right now, O-Dog. You look like you could play today. So let's just say you're not, and you got to report on these Leafs here. What start of the back end? It's been a jumbly mess on the back end. Lots of guys have come in and done well, and guys have not done well and stayed in there. What do you see for the start of the playoffs with the Leafs defensive core? Who's playing, who's not?
You know what? I think the key thing is, and Rosa, you know this watching these guys, both of you guys know it watching it, is there's not a lot of guys who are going to create offense back there. I mean, you look at Morgan Rielly, and Brody has been that guy in the past where he could make plays, jump in the rush, and create offense. But Rielly's basically the only guy. McCabe will do it once in a while. But if you're not going to do that, they have to pick out the 4 or 5 guys that are going to play in the playoffs, because Rielly's obviously going to be a staple back there. And you can say the same for McCabe. But I think Sheldon Keefe and who's ever looking after the D-corps is going to be looking for guys that can be trusted back there, that can win puck battles and be tough in front of their net and bring something to the table and be trusted is most important. Because we saw last year, it would be like Florida would go in the corner, they'd come out with the puck. I don't know if you remember that Reinhart goal where he beat Brody behind the net and just wrapped it around, and it was too casual and too easy. So if you're not going to be a guy that's going to help out the offense and join the rush, you've got to be physical, you've got to be dependable, and you got to be trusted by the coach, and you got to be able to help out the goaltender. So whatever guys are going to do it, because there's a bunch of guys, different guys in the mix, whether it be Liljegren or, you know, the big French kid. Like, he's had some games where he looks pretty good. He just recently signed a contract. And if he can get the job done, Benoit, then he's going to go out there and play. They just got to find the right 6 to go out there and do the job come playoff time. Because as we all know, it's a different animal, and you got to play for keeps back there.
Oh, we constantly have the conversation on this show about the line juggling. In your playing days, were you a big fan of that? And what do you make of Sheldon Keefe? Like, every day, it's something new with this team.
I don't know. He's like a mad scientist at times. I think that I was fortunate enough in my good playing years where I knew I was going out there with Ron Francis as my centerman, and it's a good feeling because it's like I like doing business with Ron, and that's how I score goals, because he's an elite passer. And it was kind of a staple, and it was a comfort thing where I knew it's kind of probably like Mitch Marner and Austin Matthews. But I heard you guys talking before I came on. It's going to be interesting when he does come back, Marner, because it's like there's some players that deserve the benefit of the doubt, and he's a world-class player. And for a lot of times when a world-class player and a player of that magnitude comes back, it's like, here's your spot. Doesn't matter how long you miss, because in the big leagues, sometimes you're injured or you're not playing. You're in jeopardy of losing your gig. Someone else can come up and play well. But I don't think that's the case for Marner. I think he's earned the right. But I think there's got to be a lot of conversations involved, one with Austin Matthews, one with Mitch. And I think they're at a point where the only thing that's left for these guys to do is perform in the playoffs and get it done. And they haven't done that together. So why not look at a situation where it's like, Mitch, if you want to come back and get your feet going again and play with Austin, that's great. But maybe come playoff time, it's something different. And I think it would be fantastic if you tossed him on the other line. He might get some different matchups and might allow him a chance to succeed. But it's one of those things. You look at that top line, because all that matters for these guys is playoff success. That's all there is left to do. And the top line looks pretty good right now. Matthews is contributing. They're playing physical. They're hard on pucks. They're on the forecheck, and that's what you want. So does it make sense to just toss him back up there and say, you're the great Mitch Marner, you deserve to be slotted back there? I'm not so sure about that, because there's only one thing that matters and only one thing left for these guys to prove, is that they can get it done in the playoffs.
And do you think Marner could have a problem with that? I mean, yeah, you're the great Mitch Marner and you're going the first line, and he's probably would prefer to play with Austin Matthews because of who he is, but it's not like you're dumping him with some scrubs. It's like he can see very clearly what that first line's doing. It's like, oh, here's John Tavares and William Nylander. Oh no, pout party. Like I got to think he's more mature than that. He's more of a professional than that, where he goes, no, I get what's going on with those three. Let's see what we can get rocking here on this other line and be a force coming into the playoffs.
Rosie, don't you think the best conversation is to sit everybody down involved and put the egos aside and say, look, guys, what do you think would be best for the team? Whether it be Sheldon Keefe and Tree and John Tavares and Mitch and Austin, and say, what do you guys think is the best for the team? And it might be good for the coach to stand up and say, this is what's going to be best for the team, and this is what we're doing. Maybe that just needs to happen to begin with. Just saying, our team moving forward, let's take a look at this first, and it doesn't work out, maybe we'll revert back to what we've done in the past. But for right now, the only focus is what's best for the team, because that's all that matters.
Where do you stand on Austin Matthews' pursuit of 70 goals? We've had this conversation the last little while about load management and stuff like that. I brought this up yesterday. They got a back-to-back against Florida and Tampa to wrap the season. Like, I'm not putting Matthews in a back-to-back that late in the season, but where do you stand on that conversation?
Well, I think he would have to have one of his heaters coming up here, guys, where it's like 3 tonight and then a couple the next game. And then you're like, okay, 70s is in the sights here, which is not out of the question for him to do. He's that good of a player, and he scores in bunches like that. And he seems like he's on the cusp of being in one of those heaters and trending on one of those heaters. So once again, it's a conversation. I think one of the numbers that we talked about, Brian Hayes brings it up. It's like, getting 66, because that would be more than Ovi in kind of the modern day game, and that would be a number. But it's all whatever he does kind of in the next few games, whether it could be, because I think giving him a little bit of time off before the playoffs would be great. I don't know how he feels or what he wants to do schedule-wise or workload-wise before the playoffs, but that's just another conversation. See what happens here in the next few games and see what the outlook is and what he wants to do. Because obviously 70 is a crazy number in an NHL season to rip home that many goals. It's outrageous. I've said before, I scored 41 one year, and I honestly felt like Gretzky. I was like, God, I'm scoring every night. I'm a machine. To have 30 more than that, 32 or 3 more than that would be insane. It must be a hell of a feeling. It must be the ultimate high in hockey just to have that many goals at this particular time of the season. So I think you'd have to see where he goes here in the next little bit and then kind of map out a plan after that. But once again, that's a discussion. Tree, Sheldon, and Austin, and probably Shanny, and say, what do we want to do here?
Yeah, I honestly don't think I have had that feeling even playing street hockey against my kids. I can't
Come on,
imagine.
Rosie, you scored some goals, buddy.
Off my ass, maybe. What's your thoughts on home ice? I think it's a pretty big no-brainer to want the home ice for every team, but the Leafs seem to have a little different vibe going with their home ice and their history and whatnot. How much stock do you put into where they finish up as far as that's concerned?
You know what? If the crowd could resemble kind of a mishmash of what we saw, I thought the crowd on Monday night, I was concerned about it going into the game. Is it going to be the standard Monday night where it was like coming off the high of the road game in Buffalo, which those fans are fantastic. And I wish there was some kind of way that they could get in the building every goddamn game, because it's amazing to see that. Like that's Leafs Nation. Everyone talks about Leafs Nation. They're like, oh, Leafs Nation. They sit on their hands and they don't do anything in their suits and they're drinking martinis. That was Leafs Nation down in Buffalo. And if they could ever get that into the building somehow, it would be fantastic. But it just seems like, and Tree described it as putting some snot on the roster. And it seems like that energy with Reeves can get cooking. and Domi's out there causing problems, and Bertuzzi's hitting people, and Benoit's taking people's heads off. And I've said it for 100 years, guys. Like, there's parts of the Maple Leafs history that should be tossed out because there's no winning involved. But one of the fabrics of playing in this market, I think you saw it with Wendell and Dougie. It's like people want hard work, and they want people busting their ass, and they want you to play hard and physical and finish your checks. It's one of the demands of people, regardless if they paid $200 or they went down to Buffalo for the game. So if they can kind of keep creating that energy, and Samsonov can be great and get people standing up chanting his name, then home ice would be a big deal. But if you go in there and you hear a pin drop, what the hell's the sense of even having the extra home games? It's just, I don't know. But I hope the fans at home continue to do what they've been doing.
Hey, the positive thing is that if they play Florida, I mean, you could overtake that building. I'm sure that conversation is going to come out, which should be a lot of fun to see. But I wanted to ask you about the Panthers, because we talked about it a bit earlier on in the show where, you know, this time last year they were going on their heater, and this time they're on a big time cooler. I mean, they're 4-8-1 since acquiring Tarasenko, 4-7-1 since the trade deadline. Do you read much into that?
It scares me a little bit, because I don't mind this time of year to have a little bit of a dip, because guess what? There's been so many ups and downs, and quality teams with quality players and quality goaltending, they always seem to get it back on track. So they might just get their heads out of their asses right before the playoffs, which could be a dangerous thing. Although they've fallen from me talking at trade deadline day, where I thought they were far and away the best team. They were dummying everyone 5-1 every night. Mm-hmm. And it seemed like they were unstoppable. Bob was unconscious. The physical play, the way they defended, their timely goal scoring, everyone contributing. And now it's not that way. But I don't think the one thing about that group, they're battle tested, and they have a philosophy of knowing how to get it done. I thought for sure they were going to win last night in Montreal and just put a stamp on it and say that's the Florida Panthers. But they got their ass kicked last night again. But they could be scary if they get it together just before the playoffs start. That would be a dangerous thing, the Florida Panthers.
That was full Taco Bell diarrhea against the Montreal Canadiens. You got to win those games, and then Ekblad goes down. But you starting to get that feel again, man. Like, I won't lie, I'm getting dragged back in. I know every year we have this convo in Leafs Nation where you watch the team and you're like, fuck, I'm inspired. Do you get that feeling right now?
You know what? I always just say, guys, when are you going to just lay it on the line? Like, just there's only one thing left for them to do. They're wonderfully talented players. You go from Tavares and what he's done in his career, and William Nylander, who I think looks different. He looks like he's ready to play big boy hockey. Remains to be seen if he wants to do it in a tough series against a quality opponent. But that's all that's left for them to do in the last phase of any kind of slump. Whenever I was in a goal-scoring slump or lack of success, I would just say, screw it. You got to go out there and let it fly. And that's what the playoffs is all about. They definitely got the talent, and they have to produce. And it does start with their big boys, but there could be just a different kind of energy and a different vibe where it might be a different approach and ultimately end up in different results. I hope that happens. Samsonov, as good as he's been, sometimes he causes me concern where I'm like, this is good. These saves are really good, but is it sustainable? Like, is it sustainable in two different aspects, guys, where it's like the quality of play and, oh, it's my birthday or something. Something just popped up there. Quality of play and stay healthy, because it seems like with the goaltending, a guy will go in the net and he'll play two good games, and then all of a sudden it's like the Edmonton game, groin injury or ankle or something, and they're pulled out. It's like, that's just not dependable. And you got to give the team confidence that guy, the Florida Panthers last year, they looked back there and said, Bob's ready to go, and he's going to be great tonight. And he's going to stay in the damn net all night. And that's what you're looking for. Can one of those two guys that the Leafs have back there, can they do that? And not just for 3 games. It's for 2 months. Like, that's what we're talking about here. So that's going to be one of the question marks. Can one of those guys get in that net and play well for 2 months? Because that's what they need if they want to get to the ultimate goal.
Oh, find me a normal goaltender. Find me a sane goaltender. It just does not exist. You look great, man. Appreciate your time and looking forward to this stretch drive, bud.
Okay, guys. Thanks for having me.
Thanks,
anytime. It's the O-Dog, Jeff O'Neill, looking great, man. I love his takes, his opinion. He really, really brings the heat, and we're so appreciative of his time. And I think he's bang on. I mean, we talk about Matthews, talk about Marner. It's put up or shut up time. I know it's cliche, and everybody watches this show the last couple of years, and like you guys say the same thing. Yeah, it's the same feel every postseason run, but it's like at some point, will there be a climax for these guys like Matthews and Marner? Like that's the last thing that is missing and cementing their history in Maple Leafs allure is like, can you finally get over that hump, you know?
Yeah, it is, and it's become a thing. Obviously, the history speaks for itself. But let's be honest, there is no curses. It's not some fucking voodoo heebie-jeebie stuff, man. This is hockey, and it's just there's going to be a time where they just do it. There's going to be a time where they just have it. They find it. They fill the holes. They got the personnel. They jive at the right time. They get a goaltender. Away they go. And there's no reason to think that it couldn't be this year. I really think in the past, there's always been almost more doubt than there has been belief. And, as you try to be positive and you try not to be that guy, even last year, like fucking they're dropping games to some of the worst teams all throughout the season. The inconsistency, the Jekyll and Hyde, they've kind of shored that up this year. There's just reason to believe like it might be this year that they just say enough and they just put the hammer down, block out the noise. Fuck it. We are who we are. We're going to put our hammer down, lay it on the line and just actually have success this time. So I think that's what I was saying is, just go out there and throw caution to the wind and say, screw it. Let's go play hockey as hard as we can. And I think they're good enough that if they can get that going, they've got everything in order to make that happen. So it is exciting.
It's time for the Great Clips Inbox Question of the Week, Rosie. With more than 4,400 hair salons throughout the United States and Canada, Great Clips is the world's largest hair salon brand and official hair salon of the NHL. Salons are locally owned and operated and open 7 days a week. Your time is valuable. Use the Great Clips check-in app, see the wait time, check in on your phone, and get your haircut when you want. What is your ideal third line if Marner is online too? For me, it's something around Bobby McMahon. For me, it's no Nick Robertson. I think there's a lot of moving parts, but that's probably the way I would draw it up for that third line.
Who are the three?
Well, McMahon's in there. I mean, process of elimination. McMahon's in there. Again, assuming full health, Calle Jarnkrok's on the right wing, right? And I mean, who does that leave?
Yeah, I mean, Robertson wants to make a case for that job. He's not really a fourth line grinder guy in the playoffs, right? So to me, it's kind of third line or bust for him. And I've never seen that guy skate the way he was skating against Florida last game. Like I didn't realize he was that fast. There was 3 or 4 times where he stood out to me as going, holy shit, what was that streaking across the screen? He hasn't been playing like that all year. And I don't think might be a problem with him, but I don't think it's a problem. It's just a revelation that, oh, you're capable of doing that, Nick. Because you can't just go out there. You're not Mitch Marner. You're not. And a guy like him has always been a stud. He's always been a star. He always played the big time hockey team and league and wherever he played growing up. And he's always been stroked as this super finesse skilled hockey player, which he is. And it takes this long to figure out like how skilled am I? And there's guys that don't get the message and they're like, no, I'm Mitch Marner. And the league is like, no, you're not. And you just don't play in the league. You don't. You come and they give you an opportunity and you're on the third line or fourth line and you're like, no, I'm this big goal scorer and I can't play my game with these guys on my line. Well, then bye-bye. You're not Mitch Marner. And if he realizes that, you're very skilled. You can score big goals. You can be in this lineup, but you got to work your ass off like that. You got to finish checks. You got to be hard in the corners. You got to get to the paint. And you do that paired with his skill, and you are a valuable NHL player. But mentally for him, he needs to realize that I'm sorry, you're not Mitch Marner. You aren't that good. You've had the opportunity. You haven't developed into Mitch Marner. You're not that high elite all-star guy. So there's got to be other things, elements of your game that you're going to bring to the table if you want to play on this roster in the playoffs. And lo and behold, we saw that he's kind of capable of that by, it starts with working your nuts off. And if he's capable of doing that, he could work his way into that third line as well. We'll see.
Got to spread the wealth. Again, I don't read anything into Sheldon Keefe's lines. If you're going to split the guys up, then you're splitting them through 3 lines. Like I wouldn't stack that second line, if you want to call it that. I would have Nylander or Marner on the third line. You got to integrate Nyes into the top 9. There's a lot of moving parts, but luckily that's Sheldon Keefe's job. For more information, check out greatclips.com. Great Clips. It's going to be great. The Betano wrap-up is presented by Betano.ca. The game starts now, 19 plus. Please play responsibly. Betano is the official partner of Copa America 2024. taking the beautiful game to new heights in the Americas. Join Betano in their journey of passion, unity, and unforgettable football moments. I believe 5-game slate in the NHL tonight. Give me LA in regulation against Seattle, and I like McDavid over 1.5 against the Dallas Stars.
I like it. Why not? Makes sense. It's Connor McDavid. Take it all day. Just to go back though, like we didn't even touch on Holmberg. Didn't really talk about Nyes. Like there is some deep potential on the third line, and I don't mind you throw Mitch Marner in with some of those guys.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden it's like, good Lord, are we deep? And we have that fourth line for the energy and crashing and banging and being responsible. And you throw them out there every 5 minutes and holy smokes, right? Like I was almost hesitant to say that. I'm like, well, you don't put Mitch on the third line, but I'm like,
why not?
Why not spread it out? Like just wave, like that's what playoff success looks like. Just wave after wave. Every line that comes on the ice, you know, the other team's like, we can't get a breath. We are struggling to gain possession of the puck. We're struggling to get out of our zone. We're caught out there tired as hell, like running around like dogs, just trying to get line changed because they just keep coming at us like waves. And when you got a guy like the McMahons and the Holmbergs and the Nyes that are capable of getting hot and playing with these guys, and you got like all of a sudden we're looking deep as fuck. And it starts up at the top with Bertuzzi and Domi being who they want to be with Matthews. It just shuffles everyone down and just gives you so much depth. So good problems to have right now. And what it shakes out to actually be on opening night, I think is yet to be seen in games like tonight or what they're basically auditioning for.
I would say my lasting memory, even just to wrap, like the St. Louis Blues, that team came in waves and lengths. Like Alex Steen, I think, was on their fourth line. You just need depth in the Stanley Cup playoffs, and we're going to see some different combinations. And maybe there's a method to Sheldon Keefe's madness, and that's why we've seen so many combos that lines will change on a game-by-game basis. So we'll leave it at that. Many thanks again to Jeff O'Neill, the O-Dog, for dropping by today's show. Again, don't forget to check out the Leafs Nation After Dark with Zach Phillips directly after the Leafs and Lightning game. And we should also tee up another monster guest coming up tomorrow. Legendary news anchor Peter Mansbridge is going to join us, Rosie.
I know. I'm looking forward to hearing that voice on our pod. Legendary. But we'll see what he's been doing, what he's been up to, how close he's been following these Leafs, and what his perspective is. Kind of a little outside source there of a, kind of like you say, a legendary newscaster for Canadian broadcasting. So it'll be interesting to get him on here.
Looking forward to that. Thank you to everybody in the chat at the Leafs Nation 401. Hit that subscribe button. Hit that like button. Leafs Morning Take wherever you find your podcast as well. Make sure to leave us a 5-star review with a bit on how you feel about this podcast. We would love that. Many thank you to producer Vic. For Jay Rosehill, I'm Nick Alberga. We'll talk tomorrow. Take care. Make sure to check out more of our content right here on the Leafs Nation YouTube page. We got long form interviews. We got clips. We got epic rants by Jay Rosehill. We simply have it all. And don't forget, you can find out much more at theleafsnation.com. Thanks so much for watching.